sun rolling over acres of farmland, shining the light on the world I grew up in. No name dirt roads about to get tore up, all going down in a town you never heard of. Hey everybody, welcome to the Common Folk Podcast with Ben, Morgan, and Andy.
All right.
There it is, the Matthew McConaughey. That's my opening right there.
I know it's your favorite one. That's why I did it.
That's good. That's good. I was wondering what you were going to start with, Ben.
I got to get more creative, though.
No, hey, you don't have to reinvent the wheel if Matthew McConaughey's already got something figured out for you.
Right.
That's true.
Yeah,
but should it be consistent? Should it always be the same
right.
thing? Like,
Probably should, but I don't know. I don't want anybody to mistake me for him because they look pretty similar and everything.
Yeah.
right. I mean, just a little bit younger, you know.
And,
little hot.
and your popularity is growing to where, I mean, maybe in about a year or so with this podcast, you're going to be right there with him.
Yeah.
You
I'll be
notoriety, all that good stuff.
Texas governor and all that.
Yeah.
So, he is?
Probably.
Well,
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know. He's a big,
I thought I missed something there.
No, he's just always in the news. He's really important now, too.
I think he's coming on the podcast next week.
Oh,
actually.
okay.
Okay, good.
Spoiler.
I better read his book. Doesn't he have a few?
I'm sure he does. I mean, he's the guy from Dazed and Confused. So,
It's the best.
yeah. We don't have to go buy it.
We are awfully popular because we have another guest in studio too.
Yes,
today.
we do.
But I
We're
feel like
guesting
it's
it up.
We
yeah.
are.
Lately, we've had a lot of guests,
It's been a lot of fun, too.
and I shouldn't say we're popular. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
it should be flipped.
we're actually bringing people in that do stuff.
Yeah.
Like important stuff.
Right. It's probably
it's
better
good,
than
yeah.
us three just chatting.
What I love about the format is that we're sticking to the name. It's the Common Folk Podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And literally, we are talking to the most common people on the planet. But when you dig into it, it's really like these uncommon things that these people are doing,
Right.
and that people don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Until we sit down, we have these conversations. And it's like, hey, that's just that was my neighbor. I didn't even realize they had all this going on.
Yeah.
Whatever. And I think that's going to be the case with the guest that we have today.
I think so, too. So today we have on Emily Aksamit.
Hello.
How are we doing?
Doing really well. Happy to be here.
Well, I'm really excited to have her because we've always been talking about, programs and things we can do to help out the youth. And, we talk about it. And I feel like there's a level where we talk about it. There's another level where you actually support it, maybe spend a day or throw $200 at some fundraiser. Emily lives it. That's her day job.
Mm-hmm.
She's made it her livelihood. So, Emily, could you just take a moment and kind of tell everyone, where you work and kind of your inspiration behind that and, your why? Like, how did you get into that? And you're sticking with it.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I work for the Nebraska Early Childhood Collaborative, which is almost like a test kitchen for Buffett money. So Susie Buffett, one of the children of Warren Buffett, was tasked with finding a passion and then spending Warren's money on that passion. I'm not sure if you know this, but one of his three children uses his money to build sustainable farming in third world countries, which is his passion. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
No, I didn't.
They kind of fly under the radar. It's sort of their thing where they like to stay where it's, anonymous and
Is
hard to
Platt
find.
Smith a third world country? Are we in a third world country? Does your farm fall in?
Sometimes. Yeah.
Once in a while, it does seem like that.
It feels like growing up around here, though, like with the Buffett name in general, it always is kind of low key.
Yeah.
People don't think like, one of the richest families on the planet lives right in Omaha or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised to hear that they're not out to like get a bunch of press about it.
Right.
Yeah.
So most of what I do falls in that space of an anonymity, and then just kind of just the work, the grind, getting in there and getting it done, and spending some money in the meantime.
So what exactly does this organization that Susie's so involved with? It's her baby. I mean, what does it do, and like, what are its end goal? Like, what are you trying to do?
The end goal for the organization is to improve the quality of early childhood, specifically in Omaha, but in the state of Nebraska as well, which is great because that's kind of my life mission as well. And obviously I've been in early childhood longer than just the time that I've worked for the collaborative. So it really falls in line with, which is why I started working there. It falls in line with what I've done for 25 years. I know you're probably like, no way. You're only 25 yourself. Emily.
Right. Yeah, for sure. That's exactly what I was thinking.
But when I became a mother 25 years ago.
No.
Yeah.
So you were
absolutely.
like 10
I
or
was
something?
just, I was a child bride. I was a child bride.
Oh.
This could really go off the rails fast.
Then I kind of, which is my why, to go back to my why, Andy, it's, I had this little person that I was, ill prepared to have. And, that night in the hospital, I was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Who thought I could do this? You're holding the baby, like, who gave this to me? And it changed my whole world, which it does. Everybody says that. That's not a unique statement. But it really did make me think, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do now? And so my undergrad, interesting fact, was in poetry. I got my bachelor's degree in poetry.
Fun.
Yeah. And I think...
I mean, I'm not good at poetry, but...
Well, I'm not... I didn't say I was good at it. But it was what I got my degree in, and then it shifted completely to this whole other thing.
Yeah.
To this what am I going to really do for the world? And it became about children. So
What is, for clarification, so early childhood, what is that kind of range? That age
birth
range?
to 8 in Nebraska. Early childhood is birth.
Oh, it
to
is 8. Okay, I
Go
guess
all
I
the
would
way
have
to
said
8.
5. Okay. That's good. Good question.
So it's what you guys are focusing on is a lot of stuff with like schooling, like preschooling, or
Yes, that's right. The family. What I focus on specifically is family or home childcare. And then there's a focus on center care, but what I do and what my team works on is the family child care provider.
Okay.
so does that mean like an at-home daycare scenario, or is it like the family with just their own children there?
That's a great question. It actually just means the at like a daycare in a home.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think what you're saying is really important. It does have to extend, and that's part of the quality. So I think you just dug right into a really important point there, which is it is about the family, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it has to go. It has to go beyond that. So it's not only just the daycare side of it, kind of like preschool programs, any type of support where you guys can lend a helping hand. You guys are all over that.
Right. So what I do currently is offer classes that teach family childcare providers or daycare ladies, and I say that with the utmost love and respect in my heart for these individuals that care for our children and open their home for our babies. Our baby currently is in family childcare right now, and I'm not worried at all. She's getting the best care that she could possibly get outside of being with us. But what I do is I offer courses in business so that these ladies, for the most part, sometimes men, mostly ladies, can operate their small business productively and efficiently and make some money and let it be kind of a lifetime career rather than just, I couldn't afford to put all 3 of my kids in childcare, so I just stayed home. And it's not, you're not a babysitter, you're an educator, and we want you to run your childcare as a business.
So your specific specialty, does it have less to do with here's what you need to be doing to educate these children, but more here's what you need to be doing to make sure that you're even here as a business tomorrow to be able to be there for them?
That's absolutely right. So I don't focus on the quality piece or the child development or the child education, although that's what I know how to do. I had to learn this myself. I had to find my experts and say, okay, what is a tax law when it is, in relationship to this? And what do you need to do to keep good records? So the 10 weeks that I stay with them, it's all about marketing yourself, keeping good records. What does your contract say? What does your handbook say? How do you prepare for taxes? And it's eye-opening. People have been doing this job for years, and I will say something to them that's like, what? I had no idea I had to keep my tax records that long.
Yeah.
Or like diapers could be a write-off or something to that effect, that nature.
That's right.
And something that you always see and you hear, and if you're a parent out there, you know it, there is a shortage of daycare providers. I don't care where you're at. It's a nationwide deal. Do you feel like part of the reason is because so many of these providers are ill-equipped to stay open? Like, There's something crazy like 85% of year one businesses, they fold due to just not filing taxes. And I mean, I could see that happening where all their focus should be on the child care, so the business side, I think, would get left behind.
Well, Andy, that's a really big question, because when you think about why you started doing the career that you currently do, whoever you are, there's a reason. There's a space that you came from that caused you to make those decisions that led you to where you are now. And unfortunately, sadly, a lot of times people that are doing home childcare, they came to that by, like myself, accidentally getting pregnant. Oh, I guess we're having a baby before we thought we'd have a baby. Well, what would I do now? I guess, or whatever. Or I don't have enough money in my job to pay for 3 children. Whatever the story is that takes you to family childcare, it is not very often that someone says, when I grow up, I want to be a daycare lady.
Right.
So I'm probably not educated to do this, and I'm probably doing it because I love kids, and I just want to be a mom.
Yeah.
Which isn't a career goal. It isn't a life goal, right? But it's still a really wonderful career that could be your lifetime. You're 65, and absolutely.
I think a lot of the folks who we deal with too, being in agriculture and like rural environments and stuff like that, it also comes kind of out of a necessity because there's not, you're not close to the town. There's not a lot of options.
Right.
Not only is there not a lot of options for jobs, but there's not a lot of options for your kids.
I was going to say,
so we see a lot of these.
Yeah, you're a third generation farmer. I mean, you got to take over the farms. That's how it goes.
Yeah,
that's the expectation.
So we'll see a lot of these farm mothers in, certain groups or whatever that become the spot. That the other kids will go to while the other ones go to town and work or whatever the case may be. So that happens a lot too out of that. For that particular reason.
Yeah, for sure. And if you think about that, that's a really ancient way to family. And I think there's beauty in that.
Yeah. I mean, our kids went to home daycares. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's not foreign to us and something that we hold dear to our heart, like still talk to the ladies, So do you seek these people out or do they come to you? Like, how do you help them? How do you hear these names or get these women to help them? I guess would be my question.
I seek them out, and I also, the organization seeks them out, and also just word of mouth, kind of grassroots word of mouth.
Okay. Oh, that's good.
But that was a question that I had written down to elaborate on that is, like, how do folks find you? Like, how do they even know that this organization exists? I've found in small business with the stuff that we run, I come across things all the time where I'm like, man, if I would have known about that 3 or 4 years ago, gosh, that would have been nice.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, it didn't land in front of me.
People have said that. I've had women that come in and, man, I love these women so much. They've been doing this for 25, 30 years, and they say, okay, well, tell me what you're going to tell me.
Yeah, they're probably...
Whatever. I've got to take these hours. The state's making me take them. And then by the time I'm done, they say, wow, I wish I would have known that 20 years ago.
So in that scenario, I think what you're saying is that they're required to have a certain number of hours of training, so they might go out and seek, where can I go check the box?
Right. The state of Nebraska requires that child care providers have 12 hours a year.
Okay.
Of continuing education,
yes,
Con Ed
every
type
year.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
then they potentially find you guys through that.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of them end up realizing, like, wow, I probably should do 2 or 3 times this amount of training because this is great.
Yes, and it's unique because the rest of the training that's available is about child development.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just a completely different, we're not talking about kids. We're talking about business.
Yep.
We're talking about your self-care. There's a module late in the training where we talk about savings and budgeting. And I really like to dig into why can't you save? Why can't you budget? Because if really it should take 10 minutes. Okay, here's how you budget. See how much money you have. Don't spend more money than that.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Sounds
logical.
simple. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why isn't that happening? And what I have found through this training is that there are some really deep-rooted connections and relationships that we have with money. And that And also we're nurturing people. These the providers are nurturing people. So I feel like I get it. You don't have that. You just lost your job. You're a single mom. I can't ask you for money. But it's a job. It's a business. And there's a balance there. And that really stirs some stuff, some emotional turmoil in some cases.
Yeah. Yeah, that would never be easy to, really dig into that and find out why you're always broke or why your business is going to fail. And then also having that conversation like, look, if you don't change, you're going to be out of business. You can't keep this up forever. And even though she's been getting by, for the last 5 years, you can see the end result there. It's coming. You're not going to be able to keep your doors open. The state will shut you down. Right. And I got to imagine that's pretty tough, especially when you're in a spot where they have to come to you to get the Con Ed, and then you're telling them what they don't want to hear.
Right.
On that front.
Right. And these are not, quote, business people. Mm-hmm. Right.
Right.
So I'm not in it like I don't care. I'm not cutthroat. I'm here because I care about your kids, because this is the job I want to do. Mm-hmm. So then if I say to them, you also need to do these things, they get to where they're like, I'm so uncomfortable with this. I just don't think I can do it. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. But think about it and sit with it. Why can't you? And it's been something that I think we all need to consider in ourselves. Why don't I do the thing that I know is best for me? So it's just kind of this little space where we can talk about more than just childcare and more than just budgeting.
Mm-hmm. So you said that's 10 weeks of that program. So then there's other programs that you guys offer and services through that organization or the foundation, I'm sorry?
Yes, they do they offer, and I'm not a part of this, I'm just it's in my peripheral, it's on my team, where if somebody wanted to start a family childcare, then they offer packages, boxes that have the fire extinguisher, the smoke detectors, the different things that cost money.
Okay.
And then some guidance through the licensing program, which can be difficult. So we just try to get you started and get you going. And back to Andy's point about there being wide open spaces where there is no childcare. Mm-hmm. Those are called childcare deserts. And it's absolutely the truth. I mean, think about small towns. And people are not going to, if you have an opportunity to, say you're in the medical field and you're going to go to a small town in the middle of Nebraska, but there's no childcare. You're not going to go there.
I even know out here. I mean, we've even struggled out the lake. A lot of people will want childcare and not have to go into town 30 minutes and the school's full. So it's kind of like, what are you going to do?
Yeah, like the school's kind of the go-to because it's kind of the hub or whatever. Yeah. So but even, if you go north a little bit, like into the Bellevue Pavilion area, which we spent time in, we still have family up there. They struggle to find at-home providers in that area.
Yeah.
And there's like these crazy waiting lists and stuff like that. I mean,
I know.
And they can kind of name their price too, let's get into that. And then sometimes you get stuck with somebody like, are they really getting the care they need? Or, there's so many question marks there. And that's where we've seen it, where there's not that much of a selection. You can't just pick out. It's not like find a place to eat. You're very limited, and it seems like there's just such a wide range. We, with Ozzy, it was our first, child, so we're kind of picky, right? And it was just wild, the difference. Like, one was a young gal, and she had all these swing sets and crazy stuff. One, middle-aged gal was like, they're going to be quiet, they're going to be doing math problems, they're going to be doing this. And then the one we ended up settling on was like a grandma. It's like, well, you could have them do a little bit of schoolwork, but no, she was just a loving, caring grandma. And they all called her Nana. And it was eye-opening to me, just the wide variety or range, especially within that just limited number of people that you can actually talk to. I think over half of them that we looked up were full. We couldn't even go with them even if we wanted to.
Right. And it brings you to the question of what is quality. So what is a good daycare?
Mm-hmm. Gosh, and everyone's good is so different, right?
Absolutely. And good does not mean that I have 3 swing sets in my backyard.
Yeah.
It does not mean that I can, he's going to be 3 and doing some math problems, balancing your checkbook for you. He's not going to, that's not quality. I just read something today that said that a toddler needs 7 hours of open-ended play a day.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh.
That's their job.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Your job when you're 3 is to play.
Yeah, let them explore, get their hands dirty, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Ozzy did like the swing sets, I will say.
That was play.
So how long have you been working there?
3 years, actually. I'm coming up on an anniversary, 3 years.
Okay. And then before that, you did, like you were a teacher.
So before
Or-
that, I worked for the Department of Education
Okay.
with the state of Nebraska. So I got to see the state, the bureaucracy, the red tape, that slow turning ship. I got to see that piece of it.
Okay. And was that
Oh,
good
it's
and bad?
crazy.
Okay.
I mean, it's just wild.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's so far above what is real life. And it's a group of people that are making decisions for a larger group of people. And it really comes down to, what would be cool is if everybody that did childcare had a master's degree. And then there was somebody that, like me, that was like, wait a second, that's not real life. Don't do that. Do not do that to people. So there's kind of this disconnect between people. I know you're like, what? There's a disconnect between people and government. But it was pretty apparent in the Department of Ed. Very well-wishing, intelligent people, but just a wee bit disconnected from what real life was.
That's exactly the word I was thinking about. Was disconnected.
Well,
Like, they're not doing it every day.
Right.
yeah, they don't see it. They're not on boots on the ground. And then to take it even a step further, and I've heard an argument for it, and there's some points I agree with, over on the federal level, just get rid of the Department of Education. Give it back to the states. Give it to the people, the teachers, the principals that are actually in Lincoln, Nebraska, that are in Albion, Nebraska. Let them make these rules and regulations. And, of course, adhere to, if you're a senior, you should be able to read, some guidelines like that. But on a federal level, there's just, I don't know, have you ever heard a good thing come out about the Department of Education from the federal level? And I can't think of one story, but I can rattle off 5 or 6 where like, well, this is stupid. This doesn't make sense. This, pins Alabama against Iowa, and that should, that's 2 way different places there should have different guidelines,
Right. Yeah,
That's
I
all
agree.
right.
But I think that what I learned from that was just that it's just people just trying to do a good work.
Right.
Just like all of us. We're just trying to do a good work. And it's difficult to stay focused on what a good work should look like. What is the makeup of good work? Is it that I think something, or is it that I collaborate with someone else? And what makes us good at what we're doing? And the Department of Education is really, and I think probably any office like that, although I can only speak for what my experience was, but is probably the perfect example of how do I do a good work without getting tripped up over my,
Yeah.
whatever it is that trips them up, right? Like their badge or their tie or whatever, like dumb shit we have to do. Like, I mean, are you done with that trash can? Well, you need to give it back to me. Did you use that pen? Okay, give me the pen back. I'm like, are you kidding me, dude? But that's kind of how the state is.
Yeah.
So the Department of Education at the state, do you have any idea how many people roughly are involved in that, like under that organization?
I worked for the Office of Early Childhood there, and it was a team of about 25 people.
Okay. So just to kind of get some perspective of, 25 people kind of setting the standards and making the rules for
Lots of people.
who knows how many.
I was going to say, like 300,000
providers
kids.
and children.
Right.
And, just kind of interesting to get that perspective.
Yeah. And you think about being a parent and think about the times that you and your spouse have been like, I don't think you should do that. But I think that this is going to be, like my friend called it our parenting plan, which I always, when my husband does something, I'm like, that's not part of our parenting plan. That's 2 people, let alone 25 people that are thinking like, hey, what's our plan here?
Yeah, for other people's kids.
Yeah, for other, right, exactly.
And I think it's the same for like most organizations, especially when you get to a certain size. I can think back on jobs that I've had where like the middle level management or upper level management or whatever is so disconnected from what's going on at the ground. And again, they're making the rules, they're making the decisions, they're laying down the laws, whatever. But if you could just figure out a way to get those folks that are in the trenches every day somehow involved in that, having some influence, and helping make those decisions. I mean, it's with any organization, I think, with anyone that I've been a part of anyway.
And is that kind of like where you want to go with this? Because like I know you have a lot of independent thoughts, and I think they're good thoughts. Like how could things get better, kind of from your front and for your area as a whole? Like obviously, we want the youth in Nebraska to thrive and do well and excel in all these different areas, things that they want to do. And you're on the cutting edge of this, I'd say, especially being aligned with where you're at.
Right. I mean, yeah, I think so. And I think that's a hard question, Andy, because I have perspectives of that there needs to be oversight. There needs to be funding.
Mm-hmm.
But really, when the day is done, what makes a difference in the way that we behave is the relationship that we have with the people around us. And that's true for us as grown-ups, right? Like think about accountability, who you are accountable to,
Mm-hmm.
and then how you are more likely to respond or like be nice, right? So if I want something from my husband, of course I'm going to like be sweet to him, right? I mean, it's about that relationship. I'm not going to be ugly to him and then expect him to buy me dinner, right?
Right.
Sorry, that wasn't very feminist of me. I buy my own dinner, but
It's just kind of fun if he like,
yeah. It's just
like
better
he's
for me.
treating you or
I
something.
choose for him to buy me dinner.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll reverse that.
So it's the same thing with your children. The children in our community, they're going to respond to you because you love them, you care about them, you're interested in their life and their decisions. You're paying attention to what makes them tick. So, why am I misbehaving? Am I tired? Am I hungry? Am I afraid? What is it that's causing me to be naughty? And so all the different things that are piled on top of just a child being a child and how we want to move that behavior, it's all great and it's necessary. But at the end of the day, right, it's relationship. It's people loving each other. I'm kind of a hippie about this too. Like it's people loving each other, taking care of each other. And so you can throw all the money you want at it and all the regulation you want, and you can require all the training and you can do all of these things. But what we need are people that understand how people thrive and then be invested in that work, which is the work of love and the work of relationship.
So you're saying relationship building is key. So for like your organization to the providers, it has to start there with that relationship, right?
Absolutely.
And then hopefully, I mean, the goal there is that the providers will be able to make better relationships with their kids.
Right.
Right. And that's going to make a more productive kid, a happier kid.
For sure.
Happy-go-lucky kid, right? We all want that. But it's a lot easier for me to just, I don't know, throw $20 at a fundraiser than to give them my time, my effort. I mean, man, that's difficult.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? One thing that I always come back to, and I'll use this as an example. I feel like we'll just pour money into it and we'll hire more people. We'll just get more people. That'll solve it. And I'm always on it like, let's hire less people, but pay them way more money and make sure then hold them accountable. Like, all right, you're making 3 times the salary. You better be quality good. And of course, they will live up to that if they're making that, if you can whittle it down. And sometimes I look at like the police force. Sometimes I'm like, man, why do we have all these cops? What if we just had 10% less, but that, what's left is really, really freaking good. And they're worth the rest of that money, to spend upon them. Could that be a solution where maybe less people involved, but pay them better, treat them better?
I think so, absolutely. Well, I think that educators should be paid higher than anybody else anyway.
Absolutely.
So it should be a really well-paid job. So absolutely, I agree with you there.
It is in a lot of other countries. Like educators are kind of like the highest paid,
Mm-hmm.
and it was that way in the United States for a long time. I want to say until after World War I, and then definitely after World War II, where it's like, nah, blow the doors off it. Let's build up companies now. And education took a back seat.
Right. Well, there's a couple different ways you can go with that. We're coming to a place where employers are realizing that they do not have a workforce, because there's a generation that's just not equipped to work. Because education, early childhood education and education has not supported whatever the skill set is that needs, that grows a worker. So there's the business roundtable that's now saying, hey, what are we going to do about this? So that's good. The value is coming back to, how do I get my kids ready to work?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure, I don't know this, but I'm sure that you can probably speak to when you raise a child that's going to be a farmer, right? It comes from generations of being on a farm. You don't, I don't know, so correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a point, right, where a kid isn't going to be 30 and go, hey, you know what, I think I'll buy a farm and be a farmer. It's because your dad, your grandfather, your grandma, it's this, you're raised into this work ethic or this way of doing things. And it's the same thing with anything that we do with early childhood. And there has to be value placed on that. And money is a way of showing value, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But also the world has me in it and the world has you in it. And you can give me $20 and I will go do the work. Mm-hmm. And that's okay if you do that. You don't have to do that. That's why there's me in the world, right? And that's, I think, finding the place that you're going to serve, that you are where you're strong. And it's okay to say, it's not me. I'm not that. That's okay. Because I am that.
Kids love me, though.
For sure.
Does your philosophy and your way of thinking, is that prevalent in the organization that you work for?
Well, that's a nice question to ask, isn't it? I'm going to just say no. I'm going to say that I am.
Totally.
No, not totally. I think that which I think is why, I'm going to guess that's why Andy asked me to visit with you, because I think I see things a little different from other people. Yeah.
Yeah.
There needs to be a little bit more of that, I think, and not so much, we can buy this. You can't buy it. You can't buy everything.
If that's the case, I wonder what's the relationship like with the state and your organization? Like, how do the two feel about each other?
Well, there's a rub. Yeah, it's a little scratchy, as we say in the field. It's weird because the state, again, is about legislating, and then we're about, okay, let's give this training, let's equip you, let's give you the tools you need to build quality. However, like any big organization, you end up doing the things that you've learned to do, which is to, tell people what to do and make sure they're doing it, and, micromanage and say, did you check this box? Is the box checked? So in that, there's a bureaucracy in everything. The more you get more than 10 people in a room, and somebody's going to try to be the boss, right? So I think that the mission is definitely different, but there's always that human element that's similar between every organization.
Well, it's a little bizarre to me, and when you told your story first off, how it all came together and the void that you guys fill, I thought, man, that is so Warren Buffett. Where here's a group of people that needs 12 hours of continuing education, and here's a company that's providing it. So like the local government, the state government is forcing this to happen, and then you're standing there like, yep, here we are. I just feel like that's so many of those guys that are really, really good at business. They got the government side already handled, or that's already programs in place. Now they just need to get on the receiving end of it, and I feel that's where maybe you guys run into a little bit of the tail wagging the dog, because you got to follow these guidelines in order to get that money, and you need that money to help these people, and that's where you're at. You just want to help these people. You're not concerned about checking these boxes to get that money, but if this foundation is going to work, you need to check the boxes, right? Like it's just the way I even said it, there was just a tangled up mess.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I was getting at. What I was thinking in the back of my mind was how that relationship works, and if any funding's coming from the state or whatever the case may be, and the certain, like you said, boxes that need to be checked. So then it puts management in a mindset where, like, we have to get these things done because this is how the wheels keep turning. Yes, even though all the gentler, kinder things that you want to do will move the needle. We have to do these things because this is how we get funded. This is how it keeps moving.
Yeah. But
Yes,
Emily,
absolutely.
I think you're exactly right there. Like, the relationship has to be there. Otherwise, all this other stuff is for naught. Like, yes, check the box, make sure the money's coming in, but man, you can't lose sight of what I think you're really getting at. That's the boots on the ground relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, and again, that's why there's, an accountant and then a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Because the accountant doesn't actually care what I do. He just cares if I fill out the form.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that it's easy, and I just even went there. It's easy for me to be like, yeah, well, that job has to be terrible. I can't, how that's awful for you. But really, he's there so that I can do what I need to do. So yes, there is federal money that comes in. That's a lot of money that we have to be accountable for. But there's a balance, and I think it's finding that balance. And the balance really is about, I'm good at this and you're good at that. And so let's work together in a way and to not forget that I can do this and you can do that, and that's how things get done. And I think that's kind of where the mix-up comes in. But as you guys have summarized that, I think, yeah, you're right. That's exactly right. We do have to be accountable for the taxpayer money that we spend.
Morgan and Ben are two of the top tier entrepreneurs you'll ever meet.
Oh,
You guys have some extra room over here. Can you help them get like a daycare started? It'd be really convenient for.
I don't think we need that.
Oh, come on, you guys.
oh no, Andy, it could be out of your house.
We're relationship building, right? Not my house, but
Yeah, you've got the younger ones.
Well, I need somewhere to take them.
You don't want him in your basement?
No, I want my basement back.
You got a swing set and a pool and everything.
I do.
Oh,
I
yeah,
do.
pool. I forgot about that.
They got plenty of play time this summer. I will say that, which, I like play time too. So that did work out. That worked out just fine. But I don't know if I'm going to be very good at the other side of it, the box checking and, all that stuff. I'll probably lack. Just being honest.
Oh my gosh. Andy, I don't know what to do with you.
So within what you do, I've got a couple of other questions that kind of bounce around a little bit. This one I'll probably wait till later to kind of wrap up. But are you dealing directly? You're dealing directly with the providers.
That's right. Yep.
Something that's curious to me is overall, or as a percentage or whatever, how would you classify kind of the income level or social status of the providers that you work with? I'm just curious about that in terms of home daycare providers. Where do they typically land?
That is, I think I've had providers that say that they make a pretty good living at it, and I'm sure that's true. And I think the longer you're doing it, and then when you don't have as your kids grow, the less you spend, the more you're going to make, right? And I think it's the same thing with the provider. So they grow out of being a young family and they make more money. But I think for the most part, it's not the most lucrative position to have. And it costs a lot of money to stay relevant in the field and to be, if you, like Andy shared earlier about walking into a home and having, 3 different choices, and the parent, the client is going to look and say, this one looks really good. And so that costs money to try to build that. So I think it really, there's not one answer for that. I don't think people do it for the money. But I think if you're smart, and I don't mean to say that
it's okay. There's dumb people. There's dumb people out there. It's okay.
Well, smart with money, and I'm getting
like savvy more.
Yes,
Right.
yeah. Thank you, savvy. I mean, I myself didn't make any money doing home daycare. I would have no money at all now if it wasn't for my husband.
Then
yes.
I don't think we touched on
Wow.
that.
Yeah, I did it for 10 years.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would have no money because if I have $20, I'm like, who wants a pizza? I'm not somebody that saves money, and I'm terrible with it. So I get that it's not easy, and it's not. And again, we're not business people. We're trying to just watch. So it's hard to make money, I think, unless you can buckle down and say, here's what it means for me to make money. So I would say that it's less than a public school teacher for sure.
And I guess what I was more curious about was not necessarily like how much money they're making as a provider, but more like where they came from. So like the different areas of town that you deal with, like is there certain levels of income in certain areas of town where you see more of those than less? You know, that's just something that's curious,
Sure.
to me.
No, actually,
Okay.
it goes across the board.
Okay. So it's
There-
a universal need,
Right.
100%.
So a
Right.
$280,000 home neighborhood has the same number of in-home daycares as a median $80,000 home.
I would say so. And I think that families choose center or home care just based off their own what they want.
Yeah. And
Okay.
maybe how they came up or whatever.
Yeah. What is your experience? Who do you trust? Is there someone you like? Do you want your child to go to a center, or do you want them to stay in a home with? So it's all a personal decision, and there are providers that have spouses that work, so they don't necessarily have to make as much money
Yeah.
because they're kind of doing it as a way to stay home with their own kids. So there's not even one typical
Wow.
provider.
That's interesting.
I can see that, though. You think about it for
Yeah.
a minute, you can really see that.
Yep. So you said that you had done it yourself
Yeah.
for 10 years. Your child or children were there with you, or
Yes, I have. I have two older girls.
okay?
And like I said, I got a degree in poetry, and I was going to go further with that, which I think meant I was going to be at a coffee house and write poems.
Oh, yeah.
When
I
I,
think that
said
was
fun earlier, I was like, oh, like Hallmark cards or I don't know.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like-
And I spent that summer getting pregnant, and so then I thought
That was a good summer.
it was a pretty good summer.
Yeah.
But then I got ready to go back to start that higher degree and go on with what I thought my life was going to look like, and
Yeah.
there was a baby there. So I thought, okay, well, I guess I'll do something else. And I didn't. After I had her, I was like, I can't go. I'm not going anywhere. This is where I'm right here with this little human.
Yeah.
And so I started a daycare at home so I could be with her. And it grew and it grew and it grew. And it was so successful. It was just such a wonderful 10 years. It was a great 10 years. And I'm really happy that I had a chance to do it. But my main goal was to just parent my kids.
Yeah.
So then once that was done, you were kind of like, all right, well, I achieved that. And that's kind of why you got out of it, you think? Or
That's what I was going
doing
to
it
ask.
yourself?
Why you got out of it?
Well, I worked on a higher degree. So I got a master's degree while I was doing daycare. And then I wanted to teach. So I wanted to teach early childhood. And when my middle one went to kindergarten, I thought, okay, I'm going to go do something else.
There we go.
Perfect.
Do you see that a lot where it is just kind of your scenario where it's a new mom and she thought, hey, this would be a great way to just spend all day with my kids, which is what I want to do. And there's nothing wrong with it. I think that is great. And then as soon as, they go to kindergarten, first grade, whatever, then they're like, okay, I want to get out of it. So they already have that window set in mind. Does that make it more difficult?
I think again it's just a personal. I see both. I see people that started that way and then did it for 30 years, and I see people that started and 3 years later thought this is not for me because it's hard work. I mean, you are working an hour before everyone else goes to work, and an hour after everyone stops, and then in COVID there was people were operating their family childcares with masks on. Trying to care for little ones.
Yeah.
Just so they could keep
Because that
having
was-
kids there.
Yes, and because that was also what the state required.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
So
it-
they were trying to care for people's children. And can you imagine these little guys? I mean, that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
These little guys that come into a home, which you're trying to have that home environment, and their provider, all they see is their face, their eyes. So it's a tough job, cleaning, trying to take care of 4-year-olds while somebody's having a messy diaper leak out of their pants, or potty training. I mean, potty training 3 or 4 kids at one time it's all crazy. You think, okay, well, but how many of us have dropped our kid off at daycare and been like, bye?
Thank
Yeah.
God.
yeah.
Thank God it's not me.
Yeah.
You're
exactly.
like, you.
I always think about more kind of like the mechanical side of things. like the care and love and all that stuff too. I mean, that's obviously important. I think about that, but I just think about like the wear and tear and the beating on just the physical environment. It's like we live in our house. Like if we've lived in our house for 5 years, if it was a daycare, it would have been like we've lived there for 20 years in that 5 years.
Yeah, the walls.
Yeah. Kids are tough.
Like just
they're tough on stuff.
Beat.
Yeah.
The door gets open 100 times more a day than it would on normal. Just like all those things.
I never would have thought about that. That's funny you think that way. Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah. The kids are hard on stuff. Everything. Carpet, furniture, all of it.
And that's a big cost for the providers to think about because you have to maintain that. I mean, that stuff's going to fail.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then try to do that with 6 kids only at one high end, 170 a week times 6. That's it. That's your income.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you've got to pay taxes and all the other stuff that comes along with all that.
Right. And then most of the time they don't have retirement. They're not paying into retirement. They're not paying into benefits.
Yeah.
So it's not an easy job.
So on that note, for like everybody, we have a lot of listeners in Nebraska, but we also have a lot nationwide. Is there like a website people can go to, especially daycare providers, or everybody knows somebody, like maybe a younger gal that's looking to get into it. If they hear this podcast, they can tell them, look, you might want to look into this to help you turn this into a business.
So you can visit Nebraska Early Childhood Collaborative.org. And there's a couple different pages there that talk about the different things that we offer, which one of them is, becoming licensed, going through the toolkit for licensure. And then there's the business training series. And then there's something that leads you into quality, which would be some mentoring and some money, some funds. So money is not, you can talk and talk and talk and talk, but at the end of the day, sometimes we just need some money. And I love money too. I don't just love relationships. I love money too. So that's something that we offer as well. But if you go to the Nebraska Early Childhood Collaborative.org, it's a really fun little page with lots of little critters on it. And
if someone from out of state were to visit that, would they be able to get some kind of direction to maybe something locally that's going on with them? Or
yes, they would. That's a good question. So we only serve Nebraskans because we are funded by a very famous Nebraskan. But we work with the rest of the nation, and so there would be really, we are prepared to point people in the right direction.
Yeah,
absolutely.
There's good links there and everything. Good.
You got to wonder in some of the states that don't have organizations like what you guys do. I mean, I'm sure you feel like everyone else does that. Like sometimes, what are we doing? We're spinning our wheels. This is a waste of time or whatever. But the reality is, you guys are certainly making a difference. And what would it be like without it? And there's probably a lot of states like that. So I think it's probably a really good thing.
You know what? You're right. When we have collaborated with other states, they will come in and say, well, of course you guys are doing this. Of course you are. You have this. But, yes, that is the truth. But there's
Nebraska
also just
nice, bro.
Yeah.
But there's also just a lot of hard work that goes into it as well. But
No doubt,
the truth is we are very lucky in Nebraska. We do have a really good bought-in funder.
So I think the last thing that I have, and you guys can ask anything if you do, but I was curious based on all the stuff that we've talked about, and I think this could probably be a really long conversation. I think there's some stuff you're kind of dancing around a little bit. If there was anything that you could do or see or some type of change or some kind of direction at your organization or just in the field in general, what would that really be for you?
I think that what we're missing is, so let me start by saying this. I believe that the family child care provider, one of the reasons that they go into this is because there's a lot of autonomy. They really get to make their own life. They get to make their own schedule. They are their own boss. And I think that's important to the provider. I know that I enjoyed that piece when I was doing this job. In fact, when I stopped doing this job and I went into doing, another job, having a boss I was like, why are you telling me what to do?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can do this just fine without your help. So that was an adjustment for me as well to have if I were to be really honest, I still don't like having a boss. I have that kind of in me, that family childcare provider in me. So there's a piece that it makes it hard to find providers because these are fiercely independent people. Mm-hmm. They have been running a business. Poorly or well, they have been running a business. And they don't always want me or whoever me
Your
might
help.
be to come in and be like, hey, here's what you could do better. Even though I'm probably, here's something you could do better. It's difficult to find people. And I think that they're in Nebraska. If I'm going to be totally honest here, there are some issues with race when it comes to different communities. There's, it's difficult for someone like me to reach people in certain communities that maybe have walls up, don't want help.
Yeah, to really get their ear.
Yeah, and so that's the biggest piece is there are communities of people that are impoverished or marginalized, and you can't just walk in and say, hey, I'm going to change your life. It just doesn't work. And so finding the communities, the pockets of kids and providers that really need the resources and that are open to accepting is difficult. That's the most difficult part of my job of our job is to reach the people that really could benefit from the help that we can offer. If I could change that, if I could change one thing, I think it would be which again is like pie in the sky, right? Like to break down those walls and to be able to get into where we really need to be, I think.
So it's that you feel confident in the tools that you have and the tools that you're bringing to the provider and to the industry, but it's more that you've got there's some of those barriers there that are preventing you from doing that are socioeconomic type barriers from the sounds of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, socioeconomic, and I think the race and culture as well. We're right down in the heart of Omaha, and I've learned quite a bit about the history in Omaha, and I can understand why the people in Omaha that in the neighborhood where we're located don't really want help. I get it. And when I say help, see, look what I just said, right? I just bought into that. Who am I to say that I'm helping, right? But then so it's just really kind of runs deep, and so you think I'm trying to work in an environment that I'm basically. It doesn't matter if I don't. Who cares if I'm there?
You're not always welcome.
Even
though you know you have some tools, some resources that could really help, and it would go the same way. Like if my hometown of now there's like population 300. And if you just rolled in there like, hey, Kathy, this is what you need to do, and this is how you need to do it. It's like, oh, she's been doing it for over 20 years. She did my, grandkids and them kids.
Yeah.
And for you to just show up with, no, we're state licensed and we got a bunch of money. Here we go.
Right.
I don't know if that's going to fly.
It's the same thing in every industry.
Yeah.
Again, like we go back to farming, when we're out, you and I, when we met each other out knocking on doors and trying to talk to farmers about new technologies. And they're like, no,
get out of here,
man. Dad's been doing it like this for 60 years. Like, forget about it. Get that snake oil out of here.
Yep. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Right. That's exactly, that's a really good, that's exactly the same thing that I have to deal with as well.
Yeah.
And I respect that in a way. I mean, I'm not going to try to say that I have something that everybody,
it just makes it so much harder for you.
It does, yes.
And your team, you said,
Yes,
right? Because you guys are all working together for one cause, and that is to help, like you said. But
God, it's such you got to dance around helping people.
I know.
God, it's a pisser.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, and I understand because pride is such a powerful thing. Being a proud people, being a proud, community is what survival. It's one of the bones of survival, right? So you don't want to take that, it's for me. I can speak specifically for myself. That's difficult for me to try to step in and say, I have something you need,
right?
Even if I do.
Yeah,
that's tough.
Yeah, definitely.
So what's the answer? How did you guys sell the snake oil then? Tell me how to do it.
Just visit. I would have to visit them about 30 times.
Yeah, that's gonna.
And then they finally got to the point where they were like, all right, you're not going to quit coming around, are you? Mm-hmm. I'm like, no, so I'm going to be here next week if you say no again.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, here's 1,000 hoops. Let's see if you jump through all 1,000 of them.
Yeah.
And you got to just keep hammering.
But
And
you were
really
nice and friendly.
And that I think that is the answer, at least for what we were doing. And a lot of things that I've had is it's the relationship. It's 100% the relationship.
Yep.
So building that, finding that common ground, getting that trust. And it's a long run proposition. You know what I mean? It's not, I'm going to go visit them and then this is going to happen and that's going to happen. It's going to be great. And then we'll move on to the next one.
It's not like that. That was the lowest thing on the totem pole. Like, man, this is going to help. This is going to save you money. This is going to grow more corn, yield more bushels, all that stuff. Like, yeah. See you later.
And I think the problem that presents itself is kind of what you've touched on a little bit, where like there's all these boxes to check. And, if an organization sets these goals and like, okay, well, you have to have 20 people signed up for this class by the end of the month or whatever, when in reality, if you could spend the time and get 2 really committed to it,
right,
you'd be a whole lot more effective. You know what I mean? So those are the kind of things.
Right. 100%. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
And that's exactly my what I have done is to just keep knocking at that door.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
How come they haven't answered the door? I've only knocked 10 times.
Yep.
I'm only halfway there.
Yeah, exactly.
Does this deserve a toast?
Might as well.
Did we just figure it out?
I think so.
All right.
You do it.
You do it.
It's your turn.
It's your table.
All right. I'll do it. So a couple of things and we'll wrap up. This particular area of our table right here is made by a company. Wait, where are these guys located? I ask this every time. Char Chisel?
Yeah,
I can't remember where they're located. This is a couple of guys that make these flags. They've got these cool machines set up. And they do all this stuff for companies all over the country. But we really like this flag. So when we built this podcast room, we were like, man, this would be a great thing to have here. And then we decided to take it to the next level. So let me move this mic a little bit here.
What?
So inside this little hidden compartment under this table.
Holy moly.
So fancy over
Little
here.
speakeasy.
Yeah. You guys like bourbon or vodka at all?
Absolutely.
All right.
There we go.
Now we're going down the right path.
Yes, sir.
Is there a password I need to the speakeasy?
No, we've already let you in.
All right.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're good.
Right.
Andy, you want to touch on these a little
There
bit?
you go. So this is another small company based out of Nebraska by the name of Handlebend. They're out of O'Neill, up my neck of the woods. This is brass tacks type stuff where these guys, they saw a need in the community, an old downtown building. They bought it and they figured out a way to make these copper mugs. Now these ones are smaller ones, but their business is making these. And your husband, he really likes those Moscow mules.
He does.
So I think he would really get into these copper mugs. They're the real deal. They're heavy.
And
So
they make
you know they're
straws. What else do they make besides we've
It's mostly
said mugs?
cups and straws,
Yeah.
Okay.
mugs. Yep.
And they have a bar.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
The building that they took over downtown was huge, and
I can't wait to go.
there's 2 or 3 other businesses within that huge building. So
These guys, obviously, they're hand making all this stuff, so it's pretty sweet, and customizing it with different brands and stuff. So they sell on their website, handlebend.com. They're great dudes. We're looking forward to going out there and doing a podcast with them as well.
that'll be awesome.
But go ahead, Andy, on that.
But so like we like to give guests, gifts to all of our guests. So there's your custom set from Handlebend, a couple copper mugs, and that's the real deal. And how do you like the packaging there?
It's wonderful.
I mean, that's, they get
that's
after it.
basically these things, but like 3 times the size. So like a full-on cup. Again, handmade
In
by
a
those
crate,
guys.
you're gonna
Yep.
have to pry bar it open.
Yep.
Yeah, their
You got the pry bar
packaging
there.
is
Yeah.
next
Really
level.
cool.
I
Yeah.
can't even lift it. I might need help out to my car. So
That's all right.
I was going to do this for free. And I got a
Ooh.
prize
No.
even.
There you go. Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Yes. I'm
Yep.
drinking tonight.
Yes.
That's right. Yep. Now you guys will enjoy that. So to kind of top it all off with the mugs, and we got the Round the Bend Steakhouse cups.
Wow.
We're going to do ourselves a little shot ski.
That's a deuce.
I'm gonna pass
Do
tonight.
that.
You are?
Sometimes I drink. I'm not a
drink-
big hard liquor person. I have my White Claw.
You're drinking your White Claw.
I know. Sometimes I'll have the vodka. I've had the bourbon. It's really good.
Mm-hmm. You guys like
what do you
vodka
guys
or
want? Vodka?
I'll take the bourbon because I feel like I need to really push myself into a whole I'm going to push myself right now, so I'm going to go for the bourbon.
That's a good idea. I
But
like
take it
that.
easy on me. Go
Yeah.
slow. There you go. Go. There you go.
I don't think. I mean, I've tried this, but I don't think on.
I don't think you
on
have.
a podcast I've ever
think-
drank the vodka
no.
on a podcast.
And we keep saying you guys. Emily, you forgot to say who's with you here.
I did forget to say. I didn't forget. I would never forget. How could you forget that, Faith?
She would never forget.
This is my wonderful, lovely husband,
Bourbon or vodka?
Brandon.
Bourbon.
He's how Andy got set up with you, right? So
That's right.
with what you're doing right now on the podcast, you're speaking to the mic, you got the headphones on, all the stuff. Do you kind of feel like you're channeling him a little bit? Because isn't this kind of what he?
Yep, for sure. So when he started making news stories and kind of doing his thing with the TV, I would sometimes be like a witness to something, like if he can, if you couldn't find a witness, he'd be like, act like you're looking at that storm and you're shocked by it. And I'd be like, okay. And every single time, and I can talk, as Andy knows, like I'll talk, Andy and I have wonderful conversations, but as soon as that red light came on, I'd just be like,
Oh, just look at the storm. Just look at the storm.
And
What
he-
are you doing with your hands?
and he'd just be like, just talk, Emily, just talk. Like, so he's
know
taught
what
me
to say.
to be more comfortable when it comes to.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Were you proud of her performance? Yeah.
Talk on it now.
Yeah.
I am very proud. She's done pretty good.
All right.
I mean, it's sometimes deer in the headlights type stuff.
Yeah.
But that's just
It
when
must
the
be you
camera's
guys.
on.
You brought it out of her.
Did we?
Andy,
All right.
yeah.
That's good. Yeah.
All right. We did it.
Andy's got that about him.
I mean, when
Such a
you said
charmer.
you're a talker, I would say Andy's a talker. So that's,
Andy brings a lot out of me too.
I
get
know.
fired.
Yeah. Because Ben's like our quiet one.
And
I
he's
would
the
say I
host.
can talk too. I know, right? How did this happen? But yeah, so I get that.
Cool.
So are you the quiet one then,
It can
Brandon?
be.
Okay.
Yeah. A little bit.
I always feel
Not when you're broadcasting or whatever. Like.
And then you gotta.
Yeah.
I still let Andy. He's the star of the show.
Ah.
I set it up for him.
God.
I feel
I
like
felt so bad for him when he found out that he was partnered with me. I'm like, oh, this guy. He's
Maybe-
expecting like a real deal.
and maybe you're like this, maybe you're not. I am. And we need to do a podcast talking about the like
Behind the
behind
scenes, we talked about- yes.
yeah,
Oh,
of,
Yeah.
of what
Of
you
a
guys
sports
do.
broadcast?
Yes.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
that'd be fun. I
So
think
he's
there'd be a lot
coming.
of.
Get old
Yeah.
Brandon in here.
But
Yeah.
depending on the personality, I know it's like that for me. We could sit here and talk for an hour or two, whatever it is, and I'll talk. I got a lot of things to say, and I get super curious, and
You
then
take
afterwards,
notes.
I'm spent. Like
Right,
I'll go a day and not barely say anything.
This is very true.
Very conscious.
This is my life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think a lot. And then sometimes
Yeah.
I'll say
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, right.
But when you
I hear
talk for a living, if you have to talk for a living, you don't go home and do your job, right? So
Right.
yeah, Brandon
Yeah.
does the same thing. He talks and talks and thinks, and then
Mhm.
kind of just quiets
Yep,
down.
yep. And then
Yeah.
you're gassed. Yeah, it's time
Yeah.
to take a little break. Well, let's try this this drink here. So this is from Cooper's Chase in Nebraska as well. Doug Trainer, great dude, West Point.
Yep.
So we really appreciate him providing this to us. They're expanding. We just saw this
Yeah.
week they're hitting
Yeah.
Kansas, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's a distillery out of West Point, Nebraska, and they're just getting bigger and bigger. And yeah, they've been on the show. Doug's one of our most popular podcasts. Wow,
Yeah.
talking about
Yeah.
bourbon.
He
Yeah,
is.
Nebraska grains and all
Yeah.
that. So let's try this real quick, and then
Go.
we'll close it out. So let's cheers it. Thanks for coming. Try this real quick. This
Cheers.
vodka.
What do you think, Mister? Not really vodka guy.
I don't drink a lot of vodka, and that's it's good. Like it's way sweeter than I expected.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I always drink the bourbon, but
The bourbon is really easy to drink.
it is.
Yeah.
That's the best part about it.
Yeah, it's smooth, and
mean,
the
I
vodka's pretty smooth too.
I thought I was gonna have to fake it and be like, "Oh, that was great," but that really was great.
All right, there we go.
It
Tougher
doesn't.
than I
It
thought.
doesn't have that bite
Yeah.
that a lot of them do.
Yep,
That's what I really like
That's
about
nice.
theirs.
good deal.
So, man, to close it out, we're hitting an hour here. Emily, what is there anything that you wish we would have asked? Or
No, you guys are fantastic. So thoughtful.
appreciate that.
Thank you. So thoughtful and
I'm just glad you came on board with this.
For
And-
sure.
And like I said, We need to get more guests like you on. We really do. Yeah, I mean, you talked about it. Common folk. We need to get more common folks on.
This is real life stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, this is the kind of thing that a lot of people don't talk about just because, I don't know, it's just not at the forefront.
Yeah, why
Right,
would you?
right.
Oh, it's so
Yeah.
Yeah.
non-important. No, it is important.
It's extremely
Everyone's
important.
going through it.
Yeah.
It's not
Right.
just Nebraska.
And it's
but-
really, that's one of the reasons why I like the topic so much, because it's really like the most important.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about
but
it.
it's overlooked.
We talked about it when our kids were young and you were staying at home and, you know, and you were like, man, I just feel like I need to go get a job. I got to contribute to the family or whatever. And I was always like, no, you're doing the most important job. There's not anything else out there that's more important, that's going to have a longer lasting effect on the family or society in general.
Yeah.
And that's what you're dealing with. So
That's so well said. That's so well said. You're
Yeah.
right. What
And
you
the-
did was the most important work. I love that you said it that way.
Yeah.
And the kids' well-being, you know, like
Right.
yeah, it all adds up.
Yep.
So,
Well, good stuff, man.
yep.
You got anything else?
I don't,
I'm
man.
going to
Nope.
need another beer.
Yeah.
Oh,
I already
Jeez.
beat you to it. I cracked
you're
one on-
behind. You're behind.
cracked one a
Ben.
moment ago.
Step it up. Well, thanks for coming, guys.
Thanks so
Cool.
much.
Yep. All right. Well, I'm going to shut these mics down and we're going to let Burgess take us out.
All right.
Sounds good. Thanks,
Cool.
folks, for
Peace.
listening.
All right, guys. Thanks.